Hello Matrix Live and welcome to this supercharged episode with no less than 5 demos today. We are starting with a very exciting Sync V3 with Keegan, who is going to show us an early view of the mind-boggling improvements to come on Matrix. For expectations management, the demo is very impressive, but let's keep in mind this is an experiment to update the protocol itself and that it's not going to be released in the next few weeks. But it was so exciting we could not resist. Then Andy is going to show us what polls look like in Elements and how you can try them today. We're going to follow with Eric showing us his work to jump in time and in the timeline because it was quite cumbersome to do so far. Hotshot is going to demo Hookshot, the next generation multi-purpose bridge used in conjunction with Dimension. The goal of the whole package is to make bridges easy to deploy and configure. And finally, Timo is going to give us a glimpse at what Maximised Widgets are and how they look like.
Do people see a terminal?
No.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so the bottom screen is a local Synapse. This Synapse is pre-configured with a very large anonymous account. The top screen is a Sync V3 server. And I'm going to be demoing, hopefully it'll race between logging into Hydrogen on the right with just a normal Sync V2 and Hydrogen on the left running Sync V3, and just to see which is faster. So I'm just going to get ahead and do this, log in, and there we go, we're into Sync V3. And then you can scroll through and you can click on rooms and you can interact and say hi. This room's got about 2,000 odd rooms and lots of people. You can see the list of people in this room as well. There's a few bugs with it in terms of like the counts are a bit wrong, but in general, it works and interacts with. And whilst Sync V2 is chugging away at this, I'll do a little presentation. So very, very briefly, talking about Sync V3 and kind of how I got to this point overall. So the main problem with syncing in general in Matrix is that there's lots of data to sync, right? So you've got the room list, you've got all the members in rooms, you've got timelines, there's just tons of information, and that doesn't even include the things that you can't see, like end-to-end keys and devices and stuff like that, account data. Sync V1 was done way back in like 2014. The idea was basically download all the room state for every room, get a nice like 10 or 20 last events, and then just live stream everything else. But if you go offline for a few hours or over the weekend, then it's going to, you're going to get 30,000 odd events or however many, lots of events. So that was bad. So we came up with Sync V2, which is similar to Sync V1 in that you still download all the room state for all the rooms. So it's called an initial sync. But you'd have like a sliding window of events. So if there were more than, say, 15 events in a room, you'd only get the most recent 15 events, and you'd get a state delta to keep the room state up to date. Of course, if you have a lot of state because you have 30,000 people in a room, or you have lots of rooms, say 2,000 rooms, it doesn't scale very well. So for Sync V3, the idea is that you download a subset of room state and a subset of rooms, and then again, you have the last n events for those subset of rooms in a sliding window fashion. And these subsets are determined by various parameters that you can configure Sync V3 with. And that is the gist of why Sync V3 is so much faster than Sync V2. There's an embassy coming soon, and there's a repo where you can run one of these proxy servers if you are interested. So hopefully, yeah, it's still going. It should be finished in about 30 seconds or so, and then my demo is done. That's basically it with this. There's still a lot of things to do with, there we go, slanted. There's still a bunch of things that need to be done with Sync V3. Certain things like end-to-end encryption support isn't fully implemented yet, but that will happen sometime soon. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah, amazing.
Perfect timing, of course, in terms of Sync V2 matched to the demo timing. Thanks, Keegan.
Yeah. And what's the, if people want to try this out for themselves in Hydrogen, how do they do that? Can they do that?
With difficulty. I mean, you can check out, there's a feature branch, but I mean, really, no. I mean, if you really want to, you can. But I mean, it's a bit awkward and clumsy to do so at the moment.
All right, no problem. Well, thank you very much. Any questions for Keegan?
Yeah, I have a quick question, guys. Does Sync v3 will also improve overall Synapse performance in terms of scalability?
What do you mean by scalability?
We know, I mean, it's a recent topic of trying to understand how we can go up to, you know, 1 million active users or whatsoever. It's not only time of reaction, but also can this make the actual Synapse server architecture go bigger?
Yeah, I don't really know, honestly. I'm not a Synapse dev, so I can't answer for them. In theory, because I am a Dendrite dev, I would say yes. So most of the time for that Sync v2 response is the Synapse server churning away, working out what to send to the client. In Sync v3, what kind of data gets sent back is more limited in scope. So it's possible that it could be less resource intensive. I have designed the API around the idea of making it less resource intensive for
You're being too modest. It would be way better. Like your server spends its entire life churning away doing initial syncs these days, and we'd just be able to turn those all off. And like save us about half the hardware for matrix.org.
That was impressive. I hope you are as excited as I am. Let's follow with Andy and Paul's in Element.
If you're talking to your friends on Matrix and you want to ask them a question, get some responses from them, we've got a feature for you which might be interesting and fun. I'm going to try and share my screen, which didn't work earlier, so please tell me whether it works.
It works.
Good. Okay, so if you want to try this out and you're on a sort of bleeding edge version of Element, you can find it under Settings Labs. You can tick the polls button and then you'll be able to use it. So first thing I want to say is a bit of a disclaimer. This is not a secure and complete electronic voting system. That is arguably an unsolved problem. It's certainly not a problem that we've solved for this feature. This is more for fun things to ask a question of some people who get some answers. So you click on the little poll button in the corner and then you put in your question and maybe a few answers. Once you are happy with your answers, you click on Create Poll, and your poll appears in the timeline. So if I go to someone else's room, they should see it coming through, and then you can. There it goes. Then they can vote. So you can place a vote by clicking the options, and then I can vote too, and I can see the answers. And then the person who created the poll can then choose to end the poll, which will stop any votes from happening. And you can see which answer won. And that's the polls feature. It's currently almost ready, and so we're just checking it really works as well as it should do. It'll be coming soon, but not that soon.
Are there limitations to it, like how many votes you can have or how big the polls can be? Have we?
Yeah, there's a limit on the number of answers, of like far too many answers that you wouldn't want. I can't remember the exact number. There shouldn't be much of a limit on the number of votes. There are certainly edge cases where it won't count the votes correctly. So you should not rely on this for even for say your project elections or something like that.
It seemed like it doesn't show you the results until you vote yourself. Is that intentional, or was there just a delayed sync?
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't show you the results until you vote, which is a sort of vague attempt to help you not be too biased when you make your choice.
Fair enough. Cool.
I forgot to say, by the way, there is a spec for this, which client developers can look at.
Very nice. Now we have a formal way to give an opinion on the internet. I'm sure it's going to solve all the debates. Now let's follow with Eric, who's going to teach us how to jump in time.
So if you ever tried to find your messages in the past, you've probably discovered that the only option is to just scroll back forever and ever until you find your message a month later. So this feature, jump to date headers, it updates these little headers so you can pick which day you want to jump to. Say you want to jump to last month, You can go there. If you want to jump to a specific date, way back in the past, jump back to August 22nd. We can see our messages are perfectly back in history, and we can find exactly what we said on that day. It's even really nice if you want to jump back way to the beginning of the room, which would be a super daunting task if you want to find where this room was upgraded from, or that kind of information. And we want to improve this further to add maybe a few more shortcuts that would be useful. And we also want to iterate and improve the jump date headers so they're sticky and always visible. So you can do this at any point, not just find where the date separation happens and then do it. This is all being driven by MSC 3030 in the back end. So it uses the timestamp to event endpoint, so that when you give it a timestamp, you can find that entity, and then essentially we just navigate to that permalink, and everything happens magically from there. If you want to use this today, it's currently just in pull request draft status, so you'd have to check out this pull request, and you also have to run a special Synapse version which uses MSC 3030 and enables that in the experimental feature flags, but this is coming soon.
That's a significant UX improvement. And talking about UX improvement, you might remember a Matrix Live with Halfshot. He told us about a secret project to make the UX of bridges a little better. Let's follow up and see what he has to show us.
Have a live Halfshot panicking.
Yeah, my gnome decided to not share the screen. Oh, here we go. Does this look like a thing? Yes.
Yes, nice.
That's a spoiler. That's not it. I should talk about Hookshot first. So Hookshot is our sort of next generation bridge. And I've said that 3 or 4 times over my career, but this really is next generation. Basically, this is a GitHub, GitLab, Jira, and generic webhook bridge that sort of bridges lots of things to lots of places. And we're using this in conjunction with Dimension. Dimension is an integration manager. It's similar to Scalar. If you've not seen this before, it looks a bit like this. And basically, we're using the bridge combined with Dimension to make a nice, easy access to create bridges into rooms. You might have seen a GitHub bridge before. This is not that. This is a new bridge. It's better in every single way. Not to talk too much about it, but we've also got Jira bridges and webhook bridges too. I'm going to go through first, talk about the GitHub bridge, because it's the most fun one. So this is a space I created a little demo of the 3 bridges. We do GitHub help. We should see, hopefully, if it's decided to work. Oh, not. No. There we go. Okay, I don't know my own commands. So this is basically a simple GitHub bridge at the moment. It does a few things very well, with more stuff to be added. But as you can see here, you can do things like creating issues, assigning issues. So let's do a GitHub create. And that creates an issue, a nice reaction, show your issue number, and then sort of a room. You can also join this issue and start talking to it live when the bridge starts to actually create the room. So you can see here, this is actually a matrix room representing my GitHub issue. So you can start talking it, saying hello. And then if you go, hopefully, if you go to the issue, it shows, see if I sent my message through my GitHub bridge, say hello back. And of course, if I made it work, possibly, maybe not, it should appear back with my username, all that stuff appearing. But that's old hat, we've done that before. This is just the basic GitHub bridge. We've also got support for Jira, and I can show the flow of how to connect your Jira bridge. I can see here we've got our element.io instance, which definitely should not be public, and our Jira Playground issue, which is basically our project for throwing issues in without any care about what they actually are. And so you can then do something like Jira, help, show some issues with Jira. You can do a Jira create and say, I think it's a task is what you want for this one, say hello. Same deal, creates an issue, creates a new play, also tells you if stuff has happened. But then again, basically it's simple Jira, simple GitHub stuff. The more exciting stuff is the webhooks bridge, which is now sending raw data into Matrix. So what we're going to do here is create a webhook. Same way again with the integration manager. I'm sorry, Travis, I'm whizzing through your stuff. Just how it's going to be. Test webhook. So you create a webhook here, which basically has the URL, which you just talk to. And if you basically talk to that URL in one of my terminals, hopefully a safe terminal. Let's go to this one, into curl. So you can use a get, post, or a put request. It doesn't really matter. You can say something like text.
We don't see a terminal.
Oh, well, that's okay. Just imagine there's a terminal there.
Okay.
I did a curl request, and this is what happened. I did that curl request. So this is all fine, and you can say hello. You can also put a username in, go something like username. So you do that. So that's all very simple. The more dangerous webhooks is this one, and I've not demoed this before, so it's much more exciting. So this one actually is scripted so that the state event describes how the event should be displayed. So if I go to DevTools and show you in the room state, you can see here I've actually written a script inside my room state which shows you how to render the event. Do not worry about how safe this is. It's not important for the demo. But basically, we've got some simple stuff here, which basically describes how an event should look. You send some data in this data format. And so then if we go back to our terminal again, which you can't see, and do something like this, you can see here we've got receive webhook. My vehicle 123 is red and goes very fast. You could obviously use this for literally anything. The idea is that, so if you want to have an external service that talks to your room, but you just want to write a bridge to describe how to display that data, you can just write a script in the room state somewhere that displays it for you. Obviously, this is quite dangerous if you want to do this for a public setting. For hopefully for a private setting with the right permission model, you could do something very clever like this, or have some sort of Lego-style building block thing. That's basically the demo. I ran through that very quickly. Oh, actually, there's one more thing. Also, discussions is also supporting GitHub, so you can do discussions and okay, discussion very quickly. This didn't work last time, but it might work this time. There's always some hope. So this is basically a space bridging a discussion to GitHub, and usually you have to refresh element for stuff to actually appear. But if that all works, yep. So basically discussions are bridged into Matrix natively using spaces to sort of do the hierarchy format. That really is everything.
Awesome.
5 minutes.
Amazing.
Bridges are difficult to get right, and I like that there is so much improvement going in that area. Now let's move on to the next demo, Maximised Widgets by Timo.
So what I'm going to show now is Maximised Widgets, and yeah, I think you all heard of Matrix also being good for not only chat, but other things like anything where you need like a communication layer. And what would be a more accessible way than making this available, like having things other than chat right in Element? So the idea is that this is one of the very normal ways we use Element. We have one room for just chatting with each other. And here on the left-hand side, we can already see like a little teaser that we now want to have a room which is just dedicated for whiteboard. And what I could do already in the current element is just going ahead, having a whiteboard widget in my room, click on the widget, and then having it loaded after some time. Of course, we need to wait now. And then I can draw on the whiteboard. The issue with this is that it's not too accessible. It still looks like the chat is the main point of interest in this room, and the whiteboard is just like a secondary thing on the right-hand side, hidden in a panel. So what we can do now with this change is that we can make this room as its primary content just a whiteboard. So we still have the chat on the right-hand side, and while it's loading, I can show you that it's almost fully featured. So we have replies, we have edits. So I can edit this message because there's a typo in there. And even reactions work. So we have this timeline on the right-hand side, which, will also be useful for some other things planned for Element. But for now, it's just for having this Maximised widget with our whiteboard. And the timeline is just a secondary thing on the right-hand side. So now it's, all whiteboard. And the cool thing now is that this can literally be part of the room settings stored on the server. So if I share my room layout for everyone, then this other account on the right hand side also is in this whiteboard. And I can draw here, and I can draw here, and when I'm erasing, and it all works. So that is really interesting. And there's one more thing I would like to show you. So we go over here, and that is a card game. So we now have the whiteboard, which is one of the room, and then we have our chat, which is the other room, and we have a card game, which is a third room with an entirely different purpose. And we can already see it's loading up as this card game. And that's a really interesting other project. I'll definitely do a This Week in Metrics post about it at some point in time when it's a little more ready, but I was just exploring how you could implement games where you have random card drawing, but not using a third instance like a server, but doing everything on a Matrix home server. So this is literally not using any additional server than the Matrix home server. And I could buy a card here, then it's a turn of this player, I could pass, and yeah, that's not what this demo is about, but it's just something really interesting as well. So to sum up, we have rooms now, and when I click on them, they immediately show you their new purpose. This one is a chat, this one is a whiteboard, just whiteboard, and the last one is the card game I'm super excited about. So yeah, and for the really patient, or for the ones who were looking really closely, you could also tell that this has a new patch, which is also coming really soon, that the right panel is now per room. So we have our chat here, and in the actual chat room we have the info panel on the right panel, and in the whiteboard we have nothing, which is also going really nicely hand in hand with this Maximised Widget thing. Cool. Hope you're also excited to see all kinds of functionality and widgets used as a main primary content for rooms. And that's it. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
And voila, that was a massive episode with 5 demos. If you want to follow the news in Matrix, you can join This Week in Matrix if you have a Matrix account. If you don't, please get a Matrix account and join This Week in Matrix. I'm going to drop a link in the description so you can join the room. You can also follow us on Twitter, Mastodon, and obviously YouTube. I'm going to drop links to all the accounts in the descriptions. Thanks a lot for following us, and see you around.